you need to change your circle of influence. You need to change the messages that you're receiving every day, because those messages that we're getting about what we're supposed to be doing, or that we need to be buying X, Y, and Z, and success looks like the nice house, the nice car. We need to change those narratives.
Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. If you're enjoying the show, you know the routine. Leave us a rating and review. We want to hear from you and get some honest feedback to make this show work harder for your investing goals. And listen, if this is your first time listening, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Now, we've got a great show today. We're going to be talking to Naseema McElroy. They say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to grow as a multifamily investor, you have to spend more time with other multifamily investors. And an easy way to do that is to join our apartment investing mastermind group today. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the mastermind button. Now, as a part of this group, you'll get access to expert trainings, group coaching calls, industry news and updates, as well as all of our webinars and workshops, including our 3-hour workshop on raising capital. Again, if you want to be around other multifamily investors that can help you scale your portfolio today and grow your network, make sure you're a part of the Apartment Investing Mastermind. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the Mastermind button today. Naseema is a published author and the founder of Financially Intentional, a platform about personal finance and living life intentionally. Now, Naseema discusses how taking control of her finances has enabled her to overcome bankruptcy, divorce, and break the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. She shares her lessons along her path to help others benefit from the freedoms of financial independence. Let's welcome to the show, Naseema McElroy.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing excellent. It's great to see you. And I went over your bio at a very high level. Why don't you take 2 minutes and fill in some of those gaps?
Yes. So, professionally, I am a labor and delivery nurse, but for the last few years, I have been working to grow my platform, Financially Intentional, which just started out as me sharing my lessons about building wealth. I had gotten to a point where I was making good money. Like, I've always been able to make really, really good money, but building wealth and thinking I was deserving of wealth is two separate things, right? And so I got to a point where I was like, I make too much money to be broke. And I needed to figure out how to build wealth, not just for me, but I had a daughter who was turning 1, and I was like, I got to do better for her. And so I went on this mission to learn about what real wealth building was. And that was listening to a whole bunch of podcasts, audiobooks, and being in communities with people who I aspire to, debt-free communities, financial independence communities. And I created my platform for my friends. Actually, I have a core group of friends I've had since we were kids. And I was like, I want to share these lessons with you, because what I'm discovering is that these steps aren't really hard. Building wealth is not really hard, but it's information that we hadn't been exposed to. And I want to expose you to these lessons that I'm learning along the way. So just started documenting my journey. Initially, it was a debt-free journey, and then it became, building wealth, and then teaching my kids how to build wealth. But yeah, I've had my platform since 2016. And though, yes, I still work full-time as a labor and delivery nurse, I have really grown in the personal finance space. So yeah, that's what I do.
I love it. You talked about, being, a registered nurse as your
Mm-hmm.
your day job, going down this like personal finance journey for yourself. And then as you were on this journey, you wanted to share this with your friends and realizing that this was something that could be a bigger platform, sharing this with your family, setting the example for your daughters and kind of
Mm-hmm.
creating this platform. You said something that really stood out to me, and you said you were making good money, but you were questioning whether or not you were deserving of wealth. Can you explain
Mm-hmm.
and elaborate that?
I didn't see a lot of examples of people that look like me from my same background that were really what I thought was wealthy. And it's not about like flashiness or what people had, but like the security around money. A lot of people that I was surrounded with had a lot of financial insecurity. They were always talking about financial struggles. And I never saw somebody that was really, truly comfortable with money. The people that I did see that were like that were like where I went to elementary school. I'm from Oakland, and there's very different financial dynamics in Oakland. I went to a school in a very wealthy neighborhood where everybody around me, had really nice houses, really nice cars, where parents were successful, were taking trips everywhere, had dance studios in the bottom of their house. But those people did not look like me. As a matter of fact, me and my sister were the only people that looked like us in the whole school. So I just thought, that's just not for me, because what I'm seeing in my surroundings did not look like that. And so even though that happened when I was younger, it was still something that subconsciously I was still associating with me not being able to attain wealth.
That's incredible. I appreciate you sharing that because that is such a big point and a challenge I think a lot of people face. And most people don't have the presence or the awareness to dissect it the way you did. I mean, think about it. You talked about elementary school. How many people take the
Yes.
time and think about the environment they grew up in and how that impacted their view of money and wealth creation? Not many people do, right? Most people just kind of blame, their degree or whatever else, and that's it. But you actually took it to the environment you grew up in and you saw the wealth. You saw what financial security looked like. It just didn't feel like it was acceptable or permissible for you to have it.
Mhm.
Can you talk about maybe that as a limiting belief and how you ultimately overcame that to decide and realize you were deserving of wealth?
And I think that was part of the biggest part of the journey, is that mindset shift. And to be able to go back and say, oh, this started in elementary school. It also happened in college too, because I went to USC, University of Spoiled Children. And I was like, these people are rich, rich.
I'm not from the West Coast, so I've never heard that before, but that writing that down.
But to be able, but when I started learning about wealth building and what it takes to really truly be in a good place financially, that's when I started learning about money mindsets and all of those kind of things. And then I was able to go back and reflect, like, where did these narratives come from? Where did those money stories develop? And so it caused me to reflect on that. And I think a lot of people want these tools and techniques. Like, they always ask me, so, like, what are the steps to really build wealth? The first thing is to really shift your mindset around it. And until we do that work around our money stories and releasing some of that shame we have about money, like, a lot of people think that people who are wealthy, are greedy, or they have some kind of negative association with that. Well, if you have a negative association with that, then subconsciously you're blocking yourself from that, because you don't want to be that person, right? So until we fix the money stories, but first we have to discover where these money stories are coming from. But until we fix those, it's going to be hard to fix our finances overall.
I love that. You talked
Mhm.
about, kind of our subconscious and not to get, too heady here, but it's important to understand that sometimes we do block our own blessings, right? We get in our way of
Mhm.
certain things happening because we're not actively doing it, but subconsciously there's something we see. And I see that in business as well with clients and students that I work with. And I'm sure you see that. Can you talk to me about the people you help and kind of what that initial step looks like in talking to them and helping them come to the realization that maybe they are getting in their own way?
Yeah, so a lot of my clients are just like me. Like, we came from that generation that our parents was like, you're going to college by any means necessary. That means you go to college. Doesn't mean how much, it doesn't matter how much it costs. You just get through it. So we took out exorbitant amount of student loan debt because we're of that generation where it's just like thrown at us. Then, we are supposed to get into these careers and work these careers until we retire. So I have people who are highly educated, high income earners, but may have a lot of debt, and were never taught how to manage their money. And so they're struggling with their debt. They know they need to build wealth, but they just don't know where to get started. And like I said, a lot of them are just like, I need to learn how to budget and I need to learn how to invest. And I'm just like, yes, you do need to learn those things, but also you need to change your circle of influence. You need to change the messages that you're receiving every day, because those messages that we're getting about what we're supposed to be doing, or that we need to be buying X, Y, and Z, and success looks like the nice house, the nice car. We need to change those narratives because we're brought up in a heavily marketed to society, right? And so we have to change the messages and the inputs. And if people around you, like I said, have negative money stories, or then those people aren't really serving you. So you have to change your circle of influence so you can understand and go back and look at your money stories and see how they influence you. And that starts with what messages you're receiving every day. So it's about your social media network. If you don't, if you have like an Instagram account, for example, I recommend people like scratch their Instagram account. If they don't want to do that, just start a new Instagram account, or just change the people that they follow on Instagram. So it's only people that they aspire to, not people that they have this like, oh my God, like they're living such a glamorous life. But no, like people who are really doing the things that you really want to do financially and are sharing those lessons along the way. Like I have a curated list of social media accounts that people can follow so they get the messaging that changes the way that they think about money. I listen to personal finance podcasts and books when I'm driving and doing errands and doing chores around the house. That way it changes what's normal for you. And it changes your circle of influence, because I always say your network is your net worth, right? And so if people around you are paying off $1 million in debt, have $1 million net worth, are talking about investing, are talking about saving, are talking about what they do for their kids, how they train their kids, you're going to pick up on those messages and you're going to be the better of it. The better of, you're going to be better off because of it. Yeah.
I love that, especially your point
Yeah.
on like curating your content, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you're on social media, instead of just following whoever you follow, why don't you take the time to either A, create a separate account for inspiration, or start making sure that you like and you follow accounts that are going to give you the appropriate inspiration. And what you talked about was, you know, actual education, not just, pretty pictures, nice cars, nice houses, beautiful vacations, and great dinners, but actually showing you and teaching you, hey, here's how to do XYZ. That's what's going to help you grow when you surround yourself with that. Books, podcasts, events. You talked about the network being so important. I know that's why we launched our mastermind, was to create an opportunity for people to come and learn and connect with other like-minded individuals. And the point you're getting at is you have to create an environment where this is the norm, right? If you want to change your mindset, you have to create an environment where, man, the people I'm around are doing this. They are financially free. They're paying off debt. They're investing in real estate. Whatever it is, you have to surround yourself, because the truth is, a lot of times the people you're hanging out with today, your friends, your family, that may not be what their priorities are. And if you're, you know, if you're looking at what you're doing and you're benchmarking against your friends and family and that circle of influence, then there may not be enough there to change. But if you're taking that and you're looking at the life you want and you're benchmarking against those individuals and they're telling you how to get there, that's going to make it
Mm-hmm.
a little bit easier for you. So I really appreciate you taking some time to kind of break that down into some very tangible steps that people can employ in their own business and their own lives to get that traction. So we talked about the mindset, right? So what it took for you to go from, seeing it and making money, but feeling like maybe you weren't deserving of wealth, to being able to change your environment and maybe, start to move in a different direction. Talk to us about, where you're at, right? Because, I read in your bio that you had $1 million worth of debt that you were able to pay off. And that seems incredible and daunting for so many people. Talk to us about how you're actually able to do that.
Well, I know that like when you put it out that number, it's kind of like clickbaity, like, oh my God, like that's not even practical. That doesn't even make any sense. Most people are just like, okay, well, how did you get $1 million in debt? Like, I cannot relate.
Right.
But you really can't, because it wasn't anything that was abnormal. Keep in mind, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. And when I started paying off this debt, the median housing cost was $700,000. Now the housing cost, the median housing cost is over a million, 1.2 million is around the median housing cost. So just keep that in mind. So that $1 million did encompass me selling a house. So that was a big chunk of it. $200,000 of it was my student loan. So I am a highly educated nurse. I have two master's degrees, a master's in healthcare administration and a master's of nursing. Most of that debt came from just me getting my nursing degree. And I also just have regular expenses, right? Like, I did the things I was supposed to do. I went to school. I took out money against my 401k to put a down payment on my house. Like, these are all normal things. So it's not like I was just running up credit card debt. As a matter of fact, I didn't have any credit card debt because I had to file bankruptcy when I was in my early 20s because of the housing crisis. And that's a whole nother story that we could get into. But I didn't have credit cards. So it wasn't like consumer debt. I wasn't out here balling out or acting like I was living beyond my means or anything like that. All these things were normal. So it is totally relatable. It's just relative to where I live, right? And so, yes, I had like smaller debts, like medical bills, and it's like, $1,000. But I just chunked down those debts. Like, I just wrote out everything I owed, which most people don't do, right? Every single person I owed, I don't care if I owed my sister or my cousin, I put that into a page, a spreadsheet, and I just worked through each debt. And every single dollar that I got, I was really intentional about throwing that at my debt. And that's where it came, my brand name came from, is I was intentional about meeting these financial goals. And it was that intentionality that drove me to be able to pay off nearly $1 million in debt. And I did it in under 3 years.
That's incredible. And I love the
Mm-hmm.
fact that you, first of all, set it up that, hey, it's not like you were out there buying yachts and spend sports cars and stuff, right? You just
Yeah.
you're in the Bay Area. Homes are expensive there. You
Yeah.
have two master's degrees, so it adds up very quickly. But
Very
you were able to
quickly.
pay that down in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think was the biggest challenge in that process for you? Like when you look back at it, what was the one thing that was the most challenging and was probably the biggest obstacle to actually being able to pay all that debt down?
It was definitely understanding how to budget. And I was like OG Mint, user back in the day. So I thought I was budgeting because I used to go in and categorize my transactions, right? But it was really that thing of telling my money where to go in advance. And most of us set these goals like, oh, I want to pay off this debt. And I'll do it with whatever money that's left over at the end of the month. And then what ends up happening, a couple of trips to Starbucks, a couple of trips to Target, and there ain't no extra money, right? And what I had to do was set a goal like, I am going to pay off, you know, X amount of money. So $5,000 is going towards my debt this month. Set that as a goal and then adjust all of my expenses around it. And 9 times out of 10, I hit that goal. Most times I exceeded that goal just because I shifted those priorities. And a lot of people aren't able to do that or don't know that that's possible. Like when they say pay yourself first, that's exactly what they mean. And I used to hear that all the time, but I didn't know what that meant, like in reality, like how, well, in practicality, like how do you pay yourself first? You make sure you max out your retirement accounts, you set a spending goal, you set a goal that you're going to use to pay off your debt, like things like that. Like that's how you pay yourself first. And so shifting that around and prioritizing my goals and making sure that I had a concrete number that I wanted to hit was what changed the game for me.
I want to go back to because I feel like a lot of this is connected, right? So you talk about paying down the debt, being very intentional, writing down the goals for each month. You might look at it and say, okay, hey, we want to eliminate this debt. So I need to shift the dollars to make sure we do that. To get that intentional really requires work and dedication and commitment to saying, hey,
Mm-hmm.
no, this is it. I know you mentioned the bankruptcy and maybe this is all connected, but like, what was the trigger for you to say, you know what, this debt is just too much and it's weighing on me. I need to eliminate it and to be intentional because it sounds like you were still making good money, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
could probably pay most of the bills, if not all of the bills. So what was the trigger to say, no, I need to eliminate this. I need to be really committed to that?
I think a lot of people will be able to relate to this, but like sometimes we don't do stuff for ourselves, but we'll do it for our kids. So it was really having my daughter and being at the point where I was like, if something were to happen to me, what's going to happen to my daughter? Like, will she be set? Like, I need to get my money in order for her. Like, so that was a thing that really drove me over the edge. Like, this is really, really important. And so, yeah, that was the big shift for me.
No, I love that because I think we,
Mhm,
a lot of times we say these things, right, and we commit and we want to do it for our kids, and you know, um, just there's a gap between kind of what we say and what we do sometimes, and being able to reconcile that as a challenge for a lot of people. I know that first step is always the trickiest. Well, what would you recommend
mhm.
for someone who's, it's new year, they're in the same position, they're ready to crush these goals, eliminate debt, save more money, invest more. What's that first step to really making an intentional shift in that behavior?
I think you can't really do anything or reach any goal until you have a really strong why. And like I said, my why was to make sure my daughter was straight. But yeah, I had to put it into more of a context, like a practical context, right? And so I was a single mom, and I was like, I want to be able to take my daughter to Disneyland every other month, right? And be able to like afford all of these things. And so that was like where what brought me joy. So that became my why, like being able to fund Disneyland, which even though I'm in California, Disneyland is an 8 hour drive away or an hour flight. So that means flight, hotel, Disneyland tickets, which ain't cheap. And, for me and my daughter to be able to eat in a park and all of those things, like what do I need to shift around to make sure that that is, something that I'm able to attain? And so that strong why motivated me to make sure that every single one of my dollars I spent intentionally because I needed to meet those goals for me and her.
I love it. I love it. And I think that's
Hmm.
a great way of thinking about it, right? What's your
Hmm.
why?
Hmm.
Make sure that it's got to be a strong enough why for you to
Hmm.
actually move forward. And I think there's a fear component that needs to come into it. You said, "Well, if
Yeah.
something happens to me, what happens to my daughter? Like, what am I
Hmm.
giving her?" I mean, you spent,
Yeah.
years in school getting educated. Unfortunately, you can't hand those master degrees down to her, right? She doesn't get to
Definitely
walk
not.
in as a registered nurse because her
Yeah.
mom got those degrees, right? So you've got to find
Hmm.
other ways to, kind of create those opportunities and investing in assets. Let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk more about kind of, once you pay down the debt, now it's
Hmm.
about kind of, being able to invest or to kind of keep your budget low. Talk to us about kind of what you're doing today.
Right now is totally about wealth accumulation, right? It's about wealth accumulation, but at the same time being able to enjoy life now. I actually just went back to work off of after taking 10 months off. And yes, a lot of it was because I just had a baby, but the ability to do that spoke to some things I have been putting in place for a long time because I believe in the ability to make work optional, to be able to take mini vacations, but that comes with a lot of planning. So I invest heavily. Over the last couple of years. I've maxed out. I have a 403B and a 457 because I work kind of in a government entity. So I've maxed those two things out. I've maxed out my Roth IRAs every year. That's a priority for me. But also for my kids, I've heavily focused on making sure that they're good and they don't have to be in a financial position and they can opt out of a lot of the BS that I had to go through, jobs I had to take, or education that I had to do, because I wasn't in a good place financially. And so my kids have their college funds, their 529s, they have retirement accounts because they have earned income by working through my business. And then they have their own brokerage accounts where I'm training them to not only be consumers, but to be investors. And so right now, we are heavily in that wealth accumulation phase where we're stacking money, we're working hard so that we can take many vacations, we can scale back on work, and we can retire early. And my kids are set up to be millionaires in their 20s.
I love it. I love the
Mhm.
intentionality and how you gone from, being $1 million in debt to paying off that debt to now setting your kids up to be millionaires before they really even take the reins of their own
Hmm.
investments, which is just key. And when we talk about wealth accumulation and generational wealth, this is exactly what we're talking about, right? Being very intentional to have a plan to set up the next generation so that they can succeed. I know one of the tactical things we were talking about before we hit record is that you're also a house hacker, right? And I
Hmm.
started off house hacking as well. Talk to us about, that strategy and why you like that.
I love house hacking because number one, everybody has to pay for their living expenses, whether you're renting, whether you're owning, whatever. But your living expenses is probably one of the biggest parts of your budget, right? And if you're able to reduce that or even eliminate that in most cases, you free up a whole lot of money to meet your financial goals, whether that's saving, investing, paying down debt, right? And so everywhere I live, I always have an extra bedroom that I rent out to nurses, to travel nurses, or in my case, in where I live, there's nurses that are actually staff at the hospital but may live in another place, right? And I always have a room to rent out, and that significantly reduces my housing costs so that I can meet those financial goals. And I think that like when people think about house hacking, they think oftentimes like you have to have a multifamily, a duplex, triplex, all those kind of things, but you can do in your primary residence as well. And that's what I've been able to do, and it's helped me substantially with my financial goals.
I think the beauty is that, to your point, everyone's situation is different and you have to
Mm-hmm.
understand like the market dynamics and maybe where you have a competitive advantage. You being in kind of the medical industry, right? Being a nurse yourself, like you already know that there's traveling nurses and you have
Mm-hmm.
relationships there. So it
Mm-hmm.
makes sense for you to kind of create that, especially being in the Bay Area where it's already high
Mm-hmm.
priced and most
Yeah.
people won't be able to buy their own place there, especially if they're only there for a short period of time. So that makes a lot of sense. And I think what I want people to take away from that is figure out where you have some level of a competitive advantage, whether it's market
Yeah.
based, whether it's industry based, whether it's time. If you've got time on your hands, where can you maybe have a bit of a competitive advantage and then leverage that to help yourself, create either additional income or ultimately start to accumulate wealth through that. Naseema, great information there. You talked about being able to curate kind of, our social media accounts, and you're an account that I definitely want people to check out. If they want to find you, they can get you on Instagram at Financially Intentional is the handle.
Mm-hmm.
And then also you have a podcast of the same name, Financially Intentional. So we'll make sure we link to both of those in our show notes. Right now, I want to transition to our round of insights. All right. Give me a failure or an apparent failure that sets you up for later success.
Hmm. I think my student loans, right? Like in hindsight, they could be looked at as a failure, but all the years of education has paid off substantially. And I used to be like, oh, I was stupid for taking out those student loans. But then I had to reframe that and be like, you know what? The things that I've gotten to experience and the things I have learned have served me so much. I am so grateful for the ability to have taken out those student loans.
Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
Oh, Libby. Libby is a free library app where you can listen to audiobooks or download Kindle books. And I am an avid reader, but I learned later in life that I have ADHD, so I have to listen to things in 2x in order to process things. And that has been a game changer for me. So to have unlimited access to free books is something that has helped me in my business substantially.
Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
I would have to say, I just bought this book for all my family on Christmas. It's called Acres. It's a table book about Black real estate investors. And I love the concept of it because I really feel like we in our households need to see more examples of Black wealth. And it's a beautifully curated book of stories and images of Black real estate investors throughout the country. And it's by Kendra Barnes. It's called Acres.
All right, sounds like a great book. All right, give me a
Mm-hmm.
daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
Um, I work out every day. And it's just as simple as getting up in the morning. First thing I do is ride my bike. And the way that that helps me create my goals is that we trick our brains into thinking that we can achieve something, because when we say we do something and then we don't do it, our brain thinks that we're failing, right? So you have to set yourself up for at least one win every day, and that kind of snowballs into other wins.
I love that. Speaking of that, give me your number one insight for being financially intentional.
It is the circle of influence that I have. So those people that I say I curate on my social media have now in real life become my friends, and I'm able to tap in with them when I need them, and that source of inspiration has been a game changer for me.
All right, let's lighten the mood. You have said that you are out there in the San Francisco Bay Area. Give me your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
Oh my God, I love Vietnamese food. It's a place down the street from my house called Creation. I go and get their ribeye pho. It is my thing. I love Vietnamese food. So, being in the Bay Area, we have great Asian cuisines. And so this is one of my favorites.
I love it. I love it. We haven't been back to the Bay in a couple years, but I'll have to make sure I put that on a list the next time I'm back.
Yes.
Great information, Naseema. I mean, you talked about, your journey from starting out, figuring out why you were financially insecure and what it took, understanding the mindset and how that took you back to your childhood. I won't repeat it, but I love what you said about, your college experience at USC, and really just how that shaped, your relationship with money and how you had to reframe that and change that mindset before you could actually pay off your debt. How you're able to pay off your debt, being very financially intentional about that process, and then ultimately sharing that experience and helping other people along the way, and just why it's so important to be that example for those other people, right? People close to you, people that you've never met, but you're helping these individuals get a hold and get a grasp of their own financial situation, and why that why is so important, and understanding how that drives us, how that motivates us. Really, really great insights there. Naseema, again, for folks who want to follow you, you have your podcast, you also have your Instagram handle, all under Financially Intentional. We will link to both of those in our show notes. I want to thank you again for being a great guest and coming on Multifamily Insights. We look forward to staying in touch with you, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much.